What is up, party people? Okay, so today's episode switched last minute because this episode idea I had all of the notes ready for, so I just decided to go with working from home tips because today was a day and I want to do something a little bit easier, a little less aggravating, and just something that's easy to digest and easy to talk about after the day that I've had, which I'll get into it at the end of my podcast for those that actually want work from home tips. If you want updates about my life, feel free to stay after. But let's go ahead and get started. So, when you work from home, how do you stay productive? How do you have good eating habits? How do you stay healthy? And how do you maintain work life boundaries? So, for me personally, I'm going to tell you what I've done, what's worked, all of that jazz. I'm telling you right now, this exact spot where I'm sitting, I'm at my actual work desk. I don't have the best work life boundaries, but I've got some good work life boundaries. Um, because I'm a workaholic, even though my day job is a set time, I use this desk for podcasting, vlogging, doing other stuff, and I use this room for doing other stuff. So I'm not just in this room during my 8-hour workday. Like, I'm in this room constantly, even on the weekends. Like, it is insane sometimes. So, if I wasn't such a workaholic and I just had my 9 to 5, yes, I think it would be a lot easier to maintain boundaries in terms of my workload that I give to myself. However, I love podcasting and vlogging and content creation, and I have no problem spending extra time in this room at this desk. But in terms of my day job, my boundaries are great. And here's why. Okay, so how does one maintain a work life balance? Attention is 100% on your job during work times. This one is a little bit controversial. It's what employers expect of you, right? So my thing is with my job, I kind of sit around and wait until I'm needed. That's the best way to explain it. So I'm not always needed. And there's certain times where volumes of need is higher than others. So let's say after a certain time, there's not really much for me to do. What do? I then do personal stuff. And it is accepted with the job that I have. So, for example, I read. I sit at my desk and I read until I'm needed. And when I am needed, I put that book to the side. I do my job. That's basically the simplest form of what I can say. Everyone's job is different. However, make sure you are paying attention when you need to pay attention. Um, I think that when I'm on my breaks, I personally tend to use my breaks to let out Sadie if my girlfriend's not here. I also use my breaks to go to the bathroom and eat. However, because the job that I have does have a little bit of downtime, I do also eat at my desk while I'm working. And there's no issue with that. It kind of blurs the line. However, you can choose what you want on any given day. And that's why I kind of say the boundaries are what you make of them. If you want your boundaries to be your boundaries and you want your strict workday to be I'm working during my workday and on my breaks and my lunches, I'm eating and doing all of that, by all means. Mine are a little bit more blurred because of the job that I'm in, and that is okay. You have to go based off of your job, based off of your hours. How does life fit in to your workday? For me, there are days where I don't get to eat while I'm on the clock. I have to take my break and take my lunch to eat, and that's fine. And there's some days where I can eat at my desk. I have a little bit of downtime. I'll do that. It all really just depends. And that's kind of where you have to make the decision that's best for you. Another very, very important thing is to make sure you're taking your lunch and your breaks. I don't care how much of a workaholic you are entitled to what you are given. If you are given a 30-minute lunch and two 15-minute breaks, take them. Because I guarantee you, it doesn't matter. That 30-minute lunch that you clock out for is still going to get taken out of your check, whether you take it or not. So you better take it and enjoy the heck out of it. Same thing with breaks, right? You get a paid 15-minute break. It is paid. Go take it. Go to the bathroom. At the least, go lay down or sit on the couch. Take 5 minutes during your break. Close your eyes. Give yourself a deep breath and a mental break. We all need it. There is one thing that I know about work and overworking yourself is that burnout is a thing. And in order to prevent burnout, you need to consistently, every single day, as many times as a day as you can, give time for yourself. For me, that looks like washing my face in the morning, taking time to enjoy my cup of coffee, eating breakfast, taking my breaks. And when I'm on those breaks, I love to hug my girlfriend. I want to hug her. I want to cuddle her. I want to sit on the couch next to her. That is my safe space. That is a requirement for me. And that is the way I look after myself and give myself self-care. What do you do? Think about it. What do you do during your breaks? What form of self-care are you using because you're having a stressful work day? Are you ending your work day and going to go do a workout? That's great. Are you taking a walk? Are you taking a bath? Are you, doing something for yourself? Make sure you are continuing to have that level of self-care that requires you to not be burnt out. Another thing that helps is to close up your workspace at the end of the day so that you can transition into your personal life. And this is where I say I have a little bit of trouble with that because my day job desk is also my vlogging, podcast, schoolwork, everything desk. I obviously, all of my notes, my sticky notes, my work stuff, whatever it is, like I have a dedicated work laptop and work monitor. Those I close up, I set to the side. That is that. I use my personal laptop for vlogging, podcasting, anything I need to use a personal laptop for. So I'm creating a boundary by not using my work computer for personal stuff and my personal computer for work stuff. I'm keeping them separate. So even though I don't have a dedicated workspace that is just for my day job, that is okay because I know that I'm using it to do work of some sort. And this is what I kind of incorporate into one space called a productive space. Not just my day job workspace, but my productive, I need to get something done space. It's very important that within whatever space you have for your work from home job, that it's decluttered So for me right now, I have this amazing desk that my girlfriend bought me. I know you can't see it, but let me try. There you go. It has 3 drawers. 3. One of them has my books, my sticky notes, any sort of like paper that I need to write something down on. It's got like one area of things. This area, the middle desk, has anything for my crystal business and all of my electronic stuff. So, for example, because I vlog, I have my camera goes in here, stuff like that. My microphone does not have a dedicated space yet, but I'm sure I'll find a dedicated space for my microphone. Say hi to my microphone. Um, and then my left drawer has pencils, erasers, whiteout, staples, pretty much all of those stationary things. I've also got bookmarks, tape because I send out orders, scissors because I print shipping labels at home, and then I have a shelf to the left of me that has all of my books. It has my printer, technically my girlfriend's, and it has everything I need. And then to the right of me, I have an extra space of just my charger for my phone. If I want to charge my laptop, I put it over there. So I have a pretty big space. And I know that I'm not always going to have this space, so I'm trying to better incorporate how I want to work it out. But the most important part is that I try to declutter it, which I'm slowly working on. I do have a lot of sticky notes on my drawers of different things that eventually I will type up into a document. But for right now, it's just sometimes when I'm doing my job, I write stuff down and I just stick it somewhere. So things can be a little messy and disorganized at times. However, when I do get downtime, I either read or I figure out what I can do to fill the time if I'm able to fill that time. So like for example, when I was working, I noticed that all of my favorites somehow reset and they went back to my favorites from when I first started. So now I have to re-favorite everything that I need, and organize the bookmarks how I had them before. That's very frustrating and it does suck, but it happens, and that's why I'm getting it fixed and fixing it. And I do that during my downtime. And then when I have more additional downtime, I can work on organizing my notes so that things are easier to find. Again, it all comes with the work from home territory. Whatever job you have, you kind of figure out what you can do during your downtime. Ensure distractions are kept away. This one can be difficult at times. For example, you have a pet that needs something. You have to make sure you're taking care of that because you are the one that's at home and working. Girlfriend comes home and she wants to talk to you. I have a boundary with her. She needs to check in with me if I'm working or not. If I'm actively working on something, I give her the hand, like, hey, come back to me, wait for me, kind of that little kind of notice or call. And if not, then she's free to speak with me. But for the most part, you kind of got to maneuver it based on what your job is and what you're doing. My door can be open or closed depending on my day, how I'm feeling, if I'm stressed, if I need space. Like, you kind of, when you live with somebody and you work from home, you kind of set those boundaries up as you go. And that's how it's going to be. You can't just like implement all of these things. It's kind of touch and go when you learn things. There are some people that don't really have boundaries when they work from home, and they're getting up every 5 minutes to go do something because they're in the house. They're going to do their dishes, or they're going to let their dogs out. And it can be a lot to realize that, like, all the times that you're doing stuff at home, you're not working when you should be. So just make sure that you kind of keep those boundaries um, to a more rigid boundary, and keep distractions away, because the best way to kind of treat work from home is acting like you're in the office. And that's not to say that, like, you should be like all work, no play. It's just to say, like, you are getting paid to do a job, and you need to make sure you're keeping that job at the end of the day, because there are work from home companies that realize that they can be taken advantage of very easily. And if you want to keep your job, you need to make sure you're not abusing the work from home privilege. And I know that's kind of messed up, because it's like, okay, like, it is kind of a privilege to work from home. Like, a lot of people are telling me, oh gosh, I wish I could work from home. It is a privilege. And it's something that I take into consideration. I don't need a car if I don't want one. I don't have to commute to work. God knows San Antonio traffic is heck crazy during rush hours. And I get up, I roll out of bed if I wanted to, and go to work. I make my coffee at home. I don't spend money eating out. There's so many different privileges that we don't take into consideration when we're already implemented into the environment. Another thing is, make sure you're not damaging your equipment. This is kind of a given, but if you're given equipment to use to work from home, don't damage it. Don't have your cup of coffee right next to your docking station or laptop. Give it a considerable distance. I usually use water bottles. Hi! Hey guys, my girlfriend, as you guys all saw, came in, and that's what I mean about boundaries. So obviously she knew I wasn't working, so she came in, said hi. But had I been working, she would have kind of like looked at me, been like, are you on the phone? Are you busy? You know? So anyway, I'm okay with me stopping in the middle of a podcast, because I have the ability to edit. Even though it's a pain in the ass sometimes, I still do it. Love my girlfriend. And she also got me a toe wrap, because my toe has been hurting so bad. I don't know what I did to it, but it's been hurting since September. Anyway, let's get back into it. So having a dedicated workspace, decluttered, ensure you're not damaging your property, having a water bottle that's closed, or if it's one of those like Stanley cups or open cup, that's perfectly fine. Just make sure it's away from your equipment. Don't be stupid, because you don't want to be paying the company that pays you because you damaged equipment. Trust me, it's infuriating. Actually, I have no idea, but I can imagine it's infuriating. And then just make sure you're protecting your privacy between your work life and personal life. I, for example, don't want to give out any information about my job that would stop me from having my job. Best way to put it, right? In terms of my personal life, I try to keep certain words to a minimum. So, kind of like, people know that I'm in a relationship. I've said the words my partner. Do they know I'm gay? No. Could they assume? Probably. But it kind of just goes to show, like, you just, I love how I went like this. You just got to make sure that you're having a level of privacy between your life, because It's really up to you, but obviously this goes whether you work from home or not. You can tell coworkers and supervisors whatever you want, you know? For me personally, like HR knows I'm a diabetic, my supervisor knows I'm a diabetic. And it's very important to me because I want to disclose that information in case something does happen. If I need an extra break and I can't be working because my sugar's low or my sugar's high or whatever the case may be, it's important that I communicate that. You don't have to communicate that, that's not a requirement, but I have accommodations with my job because I think that it's important that if I need accommodations, they're reasonable, so I might as well incorporate and give that clear communication with my boss and say, hey, like, I'm a type 1 diabetic. Again, that decision is up to you. If you have a disability or something to communicate with your supervisor, like if you request a day off, you don't have to tell your boss why you're requesting the day off. If you're calling out, you don't have to. You don't. It's not a requirement to be like, hey, I'm calling out for XYZ. I mean, you could say I'm not feeling well. Okay, so their response should be, okay, I hope you feel better. It's just that simple. So protect your privacy as you see fit. The next one, which I struggle with personally, is establishing a routine. So establish a routine that brings energy to the start of your shift. For me, I love a cup of coffee. It gives me that energy. I'm ready to go. Some people like to read. Some people like to listen to podcasts, I should say. Some people stretch. Whatever it is that gets you motivated to start your day. I have heard that some people like to dress up for work. I personally don't care. I like my comfy clothes. I enjoy my comfy clothes, and I don't see the harm in me not dressing up if I'm not looking at anybody else. Um, I like to start my day with caffeine, as I said. I also like to do a skincare routine. I like to wash my face. I like to set up my day. I like to log on to my computer early, make sure that everything's up and running. The way that I look at working from home is it's a privilege, and me setting up my computer and setting up my applications that I need is the equivalent of me driving to work. I don't get paid for it, but I have to do it if I want to do my job. There are some people who prefer to clock in and then set up their workday, and I completely get that. However, when you look at it from that perspective, that setting up your computer is like you driving to work. You don't get paid for it, but you have to do it if you want to work. It kind of puts it into perspective for you that you don't feel so entitled to be clocking in and setting up your work day. But it all depends on who you are, what you're doing, how long it takes for you to set up. If it only takes you 5 minutes to set up and you can set up in 5 minutes after clocking in, by all means, go ahead. If you need extra time, take the extra time. Use everything at your own discretion. Anything I'm telling you in this podcast, take it to your full advantage. Do whatever you want anyway, because I know you're going to. It's very important that you do. These are just tips that I've come along with that helps me stay organized, that helps me stay disciplined, that creates consistency. But again, I also do fluctuate. I'm not always 100% consistent. I don't log in at the same time every day. I don't. And that's okay. But I just want to give you guys an idea of what has worked and what hasn't, what other people have done, what I have done, because it does help. Now, remember how I said some people like to dress up for work? That makes them feel like they're getting energized for the day. That is perfectly fine. You can dress up and it helps you give the attitude that you're in a working environment. You feel good because you look good. you feel positive for work. You feel like you're separating your work time versus your personal time because now you're in work attire. And if you're on camera, depending on your job, you're dressing to impress, you know? So those are all those factors. However, for me personally, I can still do my job in sweatpants. That's all I gotta say. I can still do it in sweatpants. And if I can do it in sweatpants, I'm perfectly fine with that. Some people like to get ready for their workday. I don't. I don't feel the need to put on makeup and dress up. I'm not I'm not going to talk to people face to face. I work from home. If I did have to do like video conferences all day, every day, then yeah, I probably would dress up. You know, it really depends on your job. So again, take whatever I say and do what you want anyway. These are all just tips. Taking care of your body. This one, I think a lot of people struggle with because they either A, eat everything in their pantry, or B, they get their groceries delivered or Uber Eats delivered or whatever. Like they get like their food delivered and they cannot control themselves because they want food and they can't go out to get it. So they have it prepared and they bring it. I am guilty of this. My coworkers are guilty of this. I've gotten Domino's. I've gotten Sweet Green because I love Sweet Green. I've gotten a couple other places that I can't think of off of the top of my head. I think one of them is Snooze AM Eatery. It's something like that. It's a breakfast place that I absolutely adore. I just can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. But yeah, you can be guilty of ordering too much Uber Eats, Grubhub, whatever delivery service you use. You can be guilty of taking all of the snacks in your pantry and putting them on your work desk. It's very hard to control your eating habits because you're literally sitting at home, you're steps away from your kitchen, you're cooking on your breaks, and then you're eating. Like, you don't realize how much more involved with food you are until you work from home. And I've gained weight personally since working from home. But I've also realized that working from home, I'm sitting down 99% of the time. So I make it a mission to stand up for at least half of my break. Whether I walk around, whether I eat, doesn't matter. I need to be standing up because my old job before working from home required me to walk around the lab here and there. So I would get in some laps, I would get in some steps. It would feel great to stand up. So, just some pointers for y'all. Try to take care of your body. You want to be healthy so you can be productive and focused and get your work done. And let's face it, if you're not taking care of your body, it can shut down if you're not getting enough rest, if you're not getting enough nutrients. It can really affect your physical, mental, emotional well-being. And if you're not taking care of yourself, like, what are you doing? You're not giving yourself the best version that you can be. You're lacking nutrients because you're not eating enough or drinking enough or eating healthy enough, you know? So just make sure you're not overeating, that you're eating as healthy as you can be in moderation, you know? Like, you can have salad and a piece of cake, do whatever you want at your free will. I'm not telling you how to live your life. I'm just saying make sure you watch what you're doing when you're working from home because we pick up on unhealthy habits when we work from home. Trust me. Taking care of your mind. I said this a little bit earlier, but you want to prevent burnout by taking mental breaks. So, on your breaks, on your lunch, take some time to relax. Go to the restroom on your break or go to the restroom during your work hours. Whatever your work policy allows, You will find the best schedule that works for you, I promise. For me personally, because I'm a diabetic and I have accommodations, I try to go to the bathroom only when I need to. I try to do it on my breaks. It doesn't always happen, and that's okay. We're not robots. We're not programmed or conditioned to pee at certain times. Like, you'll figure it out. It's fine. You know yourself. You can figure out when and where to take your breaks, and when and where to go to the restroom. Like, you can figure it out. Trust me. It gets easier once you're more in tune with your body and more in tune with your work schedule. But also make sure that you get enough rest. That is so important. You need to feel refreshed and rested for your workday. And the only way to do that is to get an adequate amount of sleep. I struggle with that sometimes. Like, no lie, I will be in bed at 12 o'clock in the morning, trying to go to bed, not knowing what to do. It happens. It's okay. Do your best to kind of find what relaxes you, what gets you to go to bed. You will find it. I'll probably do an episode at some point on sleeping tips, but for now, we're just doing work from home tips. Knowing yourself is important. Knowing what your strengths are and what you're good at. Knowing what your weaknesses are and where to improve. Knowing your boundaries and your limits. Knowing when you need a break or a minute to decompress. And knowing if the job you are working is right for you. So let's break these down a little bit. Knowing your strengths and what you're good at is something that you continue to build skill in. And that's something that you can say to your boss, hey, I'm an expert in this portion. I would love to do more of this. If you know your weaknesses and where you can improve, figure that out. Talk to your boss, communicate with them, say, hey, maybe I need help with XYZ. Is there a coaching, or, can we get together about this topic? Or is there any documentation of like how I can learn how to be better at this? Whatever the case may be, figure out your strengths and weaknesses. Figure out also if the job you're in is right for you before you do all this. Knowing your boundaries and limits. If you work a 9 to 5, you work a 9 to 5. You don't have to stay past 5 o'clock. That is not a requirement of you. Again, within limits of your job will give you the basic description. But let's say for whatever reason you work a 9 to 5 and you stay till 5:10. It is your and your company's discretion if you clock out early the next day or clock in late the next day. That is not up to me. I can't tell you what to do. All I can say is your boundaries are your boundaries. Wherever you choose to set them within limits of your company, that is not my business. These are just tips. I'm going to keep saying that. I kind of already said this, but be extra communicative. It is important to communicate with your supervisor. Your supervisor can help you identify your struggles and challenges. Your supervisor will work with you. The important part is knowing your supervisor. Build a rapport with them. Most supervisors, and there's a reason I say this, will work with you, is just like you, is just a human making a paycheck, probably doesn't like the job just as much as you do if you don't like it. Or if you like it, maybe they do like it just as much as you. But regardless, most supervisors will work with you. Most supervisors are amazing. There are some that are at a certain level because they know how to play people. I'm going to leave it at that. That is none of my business, but that's why I say be cautious and build that rapport with your supervisor. It's very, very important because you don't know other people and you don't know why that person got promoted. You don't know how that person got promoted. You don't know the company, especially if you're new. Especially if you're new. And it's even harder when you're not seeing people face to face. You can't get an idea of their aura or their energy. So proceed with caution, but be as communicative as you want. I personally have certain boundaries that I will not cross. I won't talk about my relationship. I won't talk much about my personal life. I will mention things that are very simplistic, whether it be like a book that I'm reading or something like that. That's about it. I I try to keep my boundaries there, and I also try to build rapport with those boundaries in place, if that makes sense. Um, the last thing I want to say is just have your priorities. Prioritize your workspace in the way that you choose. Your well being should be your number one, and your communication. Prioritize those things, and you will be able to have an easy work life balance. Again, every company is different. I can only speak for the company I work for and the companies I have worked for. But having a good work life balance starts with knowing yourself, knowing what you want your boundaries to be, and working with your management. Managers are tricky. I will admit that. I have not liked past managers. I have liked past managers. Not everybody is meant to get along, but you are meant to be treated fairly. So, with that being said, make sure you set boundaries, because that is your most important part when you work from home, is having boundaries. And I promise you that you will be able to work from home very well, as long as you give yourself some slack, you set your boundaries, you create a separate space, and you walk away from your desk when you're done with your day, just like I'm about to do. I think that kind of wraps up the episode. There's really not much else that I need to say in regards to working from home tips. They are pretty simple. It's a pretty easily digested episode, if I must say so myself. I wanted this to be easy because I guess I just felt like I've had a day, and I also have other topics coming in the future that are going to be a lot more in depth that I talk about. So it felt good to kind of just ramble on about this episode and say it's really simple. It's up to your discretion. It really does start with you and setting your boundaries. So that will be a future episode. Keep that in mind. I am reading a book called Set Boundaries, Find Peace. So we will be talking about that in probably about a month or so. That episode will come up, but I just want you guys to know I'm working on it. I'm trying to keep these episodes going for you so you guys get these good tips, tricks, information that I come up with. I really do love doing this, and I hope that you guys love hearing it, because this is fun for me. This is what I would dream of every day, is to just podcast as a job and content create as a job, just doing what I love, which is creating content for y'all. So I love you guys very, very much. I will see you next week on Many Mistakes Ago, where we will talk about a heavier topic. I'm not going to say what the topic is because it might change, but I know it's going to be heavier than this, because there's a lot more heavier than work from home. Love you guys. Thank you so much for listening and watching.